Chaps unite.
Chaps unite.
Chaps unite. Chaps unite.
Chaps unite against racism.
My name's Jason Snart. I'm a professor of English there and chair of literature, creative writing, and film. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. And hi, guys. My name is Dorcus Brou. I'm a second-year student here at COD, and I'm part of the MPTB or film program.
So the what brings us together now is, first of all, I knew you from the Honors English 1102 that we had together. So we already kind of knew each other a little bit. And then I was invited asked to be part of contributing to the anti-racist blog by Wendy Parks, who runs our marketing department at COD. And truthfully, I thought about it, and I was gonna do like a video thing, and then I was like, no, I'll just write something because it'll be easier to edit rather than having to like script something for myself and then just read it, like that'd be weird. And I didn't want to say anything just that sounded dumb, so I didn't want to non-script it. So I ended up writing it, which was not very dynamic or interesting, but it felt better to do, like I could control it better or make it sound right. I wanted to sit down with you like this to record something for the blog because I'm not even sure why. Like, it seems like I felt so weird about offering my perspective to the blog. And how do I phrase that? And who would even like honestly care? And so it felt more like productive maybe to have a fairly unscripted conversation with you where maybe I could share my perspective or ideas or whatever, but it's really yours that I'm more interested in about, you know, racism, anti-racist movements, how anti-racism isn't just about like not being racist as an individual, and just kind of like what your experience is over the years at COD now that you've been here for a while at this particular moment. I don't know, all of that stuff. Like, because I felt so unable to speak to it in any useful or productive way.
So I guess to start off, growing up Black, you know, that's my race, obviously. I think that in this social climate and in this topic of conversation, we often think that things are just plain, you know, it's just black and white. It's that simple. You're white, I'm Black, and that's it, you know. But I think that with that comes a lot of generalizing, that maybe all Black people are the same, or all white people are the same. All Black people maybe are poor or are not that educated, you know, and all these things. But we forget context a lot. And with everything happening with Black Lives Matter and just everything happening, you know, with social media and just everything we're seeing, the death of George Floyd, I had to, you know, step back and think and really figure out, like, what do I actually like think about all of this, you know, like what's my truth, you know, not just every Black person's truth, but me as an individual, what is my truth, you know. And growing up, we learn about racism, we learn about slavery, all of us do, you know. And for me, I think I kind of realized that when it comes to Black people in America's history, we kind of tend to stop at slavery, you know. Less stories about, you know, people like Martin Luther King or Nelson Mandela, people like that, you know, Black people who have done great things, not only in our country, but in this world. You know, we kind of mention them for a couple months and then don't stay there. We kind of focus more on poor Black people that are struggling. And I think that does harm younger Black people to grow up in an education system or just in a world that only preaches what we struggled in, you know, just our struggle, just the history of our struggle. But hey, how about we start preaching, hey, this is our struggle. This is what our ancestors have struggled with, Black people before us have struggled with. How can we come out of that? How can we start preaching, hey, even though you struggled with this, here's how we as a country can show you that you can be better. You can do great things. We have many successful Black people, you know, and they're not struggling. Why don't we talk about that? What did they do, you know, to get themselves out of that, you know, rather than sticking to the narrative that Black people are just poor, struggling, and that's just them, you know. And I know for me, growing up as a kid, I personally, again, personally, did not have that many racist like comments, because I think the context of my area, again, context. So growing up in the suburbs, and there's more white people than Black people, but there's still plenty of Black people, many Hispanics, many Latinos, you know, just a very diverse area. There weren't that many racist comments. I can't even really name one. Obviously, there's racist people, but I think we tend to think that, like, yes, racism is still an issue, and it will, I think that it will forever, you know, be an issue. It's a heart issue. We can't just fix people like this, you know, all we can do is bring awareness. But to kind of say that this country is more racist than it's ever been, you know, I think that is alarming, because we had slavery, you know, that was true racism, you know, that was true racism. And I think that we're not giving enough credit to the people of our generation, the people of older generations. You know, we're all learning. And in my class, you were a white teacher. I'm a Black student, did not receive any kind of racism or anything like that. You know, you didn't give that off. My white classmates, they didn't give that off. And so I just think that for me, it's alarming that in this social climate, we're just quick to kind of just, you know, blame that opposite race, that white people kind of are the problem, have been the problem, will always be the problem. And if you want to do that, that's okay. But I feel like you're entitled to your opinion. But I think that if we kind of look at it, blaming white people or blaming just white privilege will not fix our problems. White people are just supposed to fix everything, you know? That's not really gonna do much, okay? So I think it's not just on us, but for us to come together and say, hey, we see these things, we see racism, we know it's not okay. And I believe that not just white people, Latinos, most people, I believe, have a good heart, try to have a good heart, and can see that, hey, this is not okay. Discriminating somebody against the color of their skin is not okay. It's not okay. It doesn't make sense morally. It just does not. And I think that we owe a little of credit to this generation to say, hey, we are calling these things out. We are taking the steps. We as people do not think that's okay, you know? And so because of that, I think that we should refrain from, or might have used the wrong term there, but just try to like shy away from just throwing out the racist card all the time, because I think that we do that so much that it doesn't even mean anything anymore. Yeah. And that kind of sucks that it's losing meaning, and that we don't know who the true racists are if we're just throwing out racist to anybody who kind of doesn't agree with us, or might not understand our perspective, or just might not understand where we're coming from. How about we sit down like this and have a conversation, hear each other, and come with the heart that is saying, hey, I don't believe that this person's a bad person. They might have said something that I might not have liked, or I might even have viewed as racist. But why don't I sit down and see, you know, where their heart is at, if they're willing to share that?
That's really interesting, because it's been, I mean, one of my like challenges that I can't quite figure out, or I've just never been able to like manage this, is I really, really mean this when I truly cannot understand how someone could be racist, like really overtly name-calling racist. Like I do not get it in my heart, like you said, in my intellectual head.
Exactly.
I wouldn't even know where to begin to have like a rational or logical or meaningful conversation about change with someone who held that belief. Like I wouldn't even know where to begin.
And you saying that like brings like the point that I said. I think that a lot of people in I guess our time, I don't think hold that deep racist belief, because out of even like logic, you know, it's like, that is just my skin, I'm just brown. You're just paler than me, you know, it's as simple as that, you know. But I think a lot of it does come, you know, obviously from our history and the way that people are brought up. That context is how they might have these racist beliefs, you know. And us thinking about that. We should be thinking of that, rather than just being like, that's just how they are and they're racist.
Yeah.
Shouldn't try to like figure it out, fix it? Like, we want, the whole point of this topic, Chaps United Against Racism, the whole point of this movement is to end that, is to end that. So if we just stop at, hey, they're racist, X them out, what does that do? It doesn't fix anything.
Yeah.
It's just labeling somebody racist and moving on, but we can change that. Funny, there was actually this TED Talk that I watched, and it was this Black man, and he actually befriended a KKK member. Crazy, like insane. But he was a news reporter, and as he's talking about the TED Talk, he starts off with that, and you're like, wait, what? Here's a Black man, and then a KKK member who is one of the most racist people alive, burned Black, have done all these things to Black people, terrorized Black people in our history. We know this, But the approach that he kind of took was, I want to understand why you think that. Why are you so against Black people? Why do you think that because of my race, I'm inferior than you? Why? Asking the why, trying to understand that person. And he didn't necessarily have like a goal to befriend this man, but he just wanted to understand. And I think that approach is such a great approach, to try to understand. And in that, he gave that racist man his space to talk about what he thinks. And what he noticed was, even though it started off as the white racist man, I don't like Black people, I think they're inferior, he still respected the Black man, which is weird and doesn't kind of make sense. But as they continued to get to know each other, the man, the leader of the KKK of that area, I don't remember all the details, but he started inviting the Black man to the rallies. And so the Black man's recording and just asking questions, just, what do you guys believe? Things like that, rather than just assuming, but just asking, wanting to know. In that, as that relationship developed, they ended up being friends. The white man, the leader of the KKK, left the KKK because as they sat down and got to know each other and sat down and wanted to understand each other, he realized that is wrong. I have befriended this Black man, and that shocked him. Yeah. And he realized this hate that I have, this, it wasn't even just hate, just this sense in your head that I am superior than you because of my race. He was able to realize for himself and change for himself and see that this is not right. This is not okay. And again, this might have just been this one story, but I'm sure there's a lot of stories like that. And to hear that shocked me completely. But it was all because of that approach of, hey, I want to understand you. Regardless if I disagree with you, I want to understand where you are coming from, because the only way that we will find a solution is if we try to understand where everyone is coming from, and not to think that I'm right just because I'm Black and you're wrong just because you're white. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not okay either, to also shut down voices that are not people of color. I don't think, for me, that's okay, even if you personally might not have experienced racism. It's a free country. You should still be allowed to have your opinion and contribute to the conversation. And we come into the conversation feeling like, hey, I could be wrong. That's all.
There's a comedian and journalist and filmmaker named W. Kamau Bell. I don't know if that's the person who did that TED Talk, but he's done a very similar thing in lots of other different arenas. And I think with the KKK as well, where he goes and, I don't know if he befriends them exactly, but he just tries to like meet people who are clearly not like him, or just very surprising kinds of people. And I feel like his technique is just to give them space to like voice out loud their view of the world. Yes. And in the best case scenario, just like you were describing, it's in the act of him not talking and them talking, and they hear themselves, and it's like, wait a second, that's great. What am I even saying right now? They sort of fix themselves, and it doesn't work all the time, but it's like his approach is just to let them out themselves, basically.
Exactly. And like adding on to that, that's why I believe so much in freedom of speech. And that's why I was so happy that they asked me to do that freedom of speech panel, because that is so important. In this world, we need to have all the ideas out, because when all the ideas are out, that's when you can see when that idea is just a little stupid. That idea just does not make sense. Let people hear themselves out. Let them hear themselves out, even publicly. And other people can tell them, wait, that we don't even agree, rather than trying to shut down voices. People will continue to agree what they think, even if it's wrong. But if you bring that out in a public place or in conversation, that's where you can start changing their minds.
Yeah. I think that sense of the public space too is really important, because I feel like, I mean, the KKK example is a super extreme example.
Yeah,
people get in their little echo chamber bubbles and no one is expressing anything but that view. Like you only watch your one news channel, or you only listen to your certain group of things. And then that just seems like the logic of the world. And it's only until there's other voices in the mix that people are like, whoops, that whole thing was crazy. What was I saying? So I have one last question for you. One of the things that is a big kind of movement, or there's a higher level of awareness than I think ever, especially in my field of teaching composition or writing. And it's across education, but it's this notion of like an anti-racist pedagogy. So you made the interesting comment that you actually said that there weren't, in your childhood or growing up, there weren't many racist comments, which is, if you think about it, like there shouldn't be any.
Exactly.
Hopefully there were none, but
exactly.
Have you, even if you don't experience like that level of overt, just in your face racism to you individually, is there a degree to which you've experienced sort of like at the level of taking classes, like the curriculum, the delivery, that could either be better in terms of racial awareness or that sort of active anti-racist stance, or are you actually seeing that already in the classes that you've been taking?
Personally, I think that for me, because a lot of people in my generation or people my age, I think that what they tend to see or they tend to say is just, we just hear a lot about a lot of white people. We just hear a lot about, a lot of great things white people did, or white writers, white film art, like in all these occupations, we often only hear about white people. I think that if I don't know if you guys are already doing this, but if educators started looking, hey, what have other races contributed to these occupations or to these majors or to these fields? What have they contributed? What Black authors what Black authors do we have? What Black writers do we have? What Black film directors do we have? In all these fields, and not just Black people. I think that in this, the main issue seems to just be white people and Black people. I think that if we just only include Black people, that's just saying, okay, let's just shut you guys up. I think it's not just about Black people. Race is everyone. If we take a look into our curriculum and into ourselves and say, why are we only talking about white people? That's not the only race in America or in the world. If we just started diversifying that, not just because of this issue, not just because of Black people, but for everyone, it should be diverse, because that represents our country, that represents people, that represents this world. It's not just white people here, it's not just Black people here, it's not just Hispanics, not just Asians. We are all people, and we all deserve to know that we can make it, not just in this country, but in this world. And so having that representation can affirm that.
Yeah, just basic diversity. I mean, it sounds easy to say, but
exactly,
it's challenging to do.
We're working on it.
Yeah, right. I feel like one of the things that I've realized, and I think I'm better at now, but still learning and getting better, is to not have, like, in whatever class I'm teaching, but take like an intro to lit class. That would be a really easy example. To not have like, okay, now we're going to do the unit on Black authors.
Yeah.
And then you're done with that. Okay, Black folks done, taken care of. And then okay, now we're going to do the women author unit. Like, for me now, those are threaded throughout the whole class. They're not just little compartmentalized things we do.
Yeah, and like adding on to that, I was gonna mention, I think that as white people, I think that you guys shouldn't take, you know, this feedback, this criticism or whatever people are trying to give from a place of guilt. I just don't think that that's okay to feel like, hey, I need to talk about a black writer or a black author for using that as an example just because I'm a white person and I feel bad. Like, you know, I think that that's not okay. That's kind of condescending personally for me as a black person. I don't want my teacher to be looking at me and be like, oh, she's black.
Yeah.
I'm white and I guess life is just better for me and I need to share about black people to make her feel better. No,
Right,
like
right. So I would
that's
teach my
not
black author and then turn to you, like, okay, are we good now? Everything's
exactly.
okay now?
And it's like, come on now. No, we as people, we should know, hey, this doesn't even feel right. We should learn to look at ourselves and be like, this doesn't feel right that I'm only talking about white people. I'm sure white people are not the only people who have contributed to this field or obviously this country, you know? So it's just looking into who are these people who have contributed and let's try to diversify that a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this was great having this conversation with you. It's really interesting to hear your perspective and experience.
Yeah. And so funny, before we go, I actually thought of a moment that like we can obviously classify as like racism. Again, the term is just, I feel like sometimes we lose the meaning of that term sometimes. I think it's hard, kind of like mentioning how obviously there's overt racism, and I think often that's not the main kind of racism that we see. Yeah, we can see that in the news, the media, but for the most part, that's not it. Most people are not that out there with that. Most people have a little bit more of logic, you know, a little bit more self-awareness to not just like call out like what the N-word or things like that, you know, just to not do that. But there are obviously like stereotypes and there are discrimination that there is discrimination that comes with that. So I'm thinking of a time I was actually in middle school. And so I've been in like the honors program since I was like in second grade. Like, yeah, like, so I, in like about starting like third grade, fourth and fifth grade, me and a couple other students would leave our like main class and we'd go to like a higher, education classroom with this like special teacher, which like just taught us like advanced like English and advanced math. And I guess I struggled a bit because I think it was just very different for me. Sorry, it's giving a story, but I actually was born here in America, but I went to Africa when I was like a couple months old, and I had school there. I was doing school there. We went there with my mom as my dad finished college here. It was just cheaper, but I was there up until first grade. I came back to America. And so when I came back, I only knew French in first grade. Like in the part of Africa that we lived in, Ivory Coast, that's our nation country. I mean, nation language. No, country language. But we only
National language?
Yeah, national language. I'm like, my words, you know?
Yeah.
But I only knew French coming back in first grade. And so like reintegrating myself, like learning English again and learning this school system, it was very different. So I wasn't just dumb, but like my teacher in like third grade in this advanced class, by the time I got to like, so I was with her for third grade, fourth and fifth grade. By the time I got to fifth grade, she would like make remarks kind of like to my mom, like, I don't know, maybe she's not like smart enough, you know, things like that. And it felt a lot like it was because of my race, because like specifically because I was Black, because we had two other like white students in there. We had two Pakistanis even, and just other Asians. And I think we also have that stereotype that Asians are very smart as well. So like they didn't count, but I was the only Black student. And my mom kind of just felt like she was kind of saying that because I was Black, and it just kind of felt like she was stereotyping me for not being, I guess, smart enough, if Black people aren't smart enough. And even though I was doing fine, it was just weird. And I just remember like feeling like my teacher like looks down on me
Yeah.
because of my race, not because of my brain or anything, but because of my race. And that was like hard, you know, being a kid and like thinking that. But like for me, I had to realize I can't do much as a kid. Like I can't change her mind if that's what she thinks, but I had to prove her wrong. I had to prove her wrong, and that was what I decided to do, you know.
Yeah.
So I think leaving off with that, it's just to say that in this world, racist people exist. That's it, you know. We are not them. We don't know why, you know, but we can try to understand, or we don't have to try to understand. But we need to know that that's not every single white person. That's not everybody that's racist. And all we can do is try to educate them, try to change their minds, and not just put them in a box and say, leave you, like, let's leave you there just to like be weird. Because like most of us just don't, you know, believe in that idea of being against somebody because of the color of their skin, you know?
Yeah, I think that leaves us with the challenge, which is really so much of what this moment is about, is not like fixing individual racist, overtly racist
Yeah,
people, but
exactly.
kind of identifying that institutionalized racism where it's just like inbuilt into systems, not particular people. And if we just fix 5 of those people, then we're good to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And knowing that, hey, we are addressing this. That's the whole point of this conversation and all of our conversations. We're addressing this. We are aware of this. And those who are not, it is our job to continue to bring that awareness, you know, so we can have fairness in the job place, fairness in the education system. We might have that here, but that doesn't mean it's everywhere, you know. So the goal should be to help everyone achieve that, you know.
Well, again, it was great talking with you. Maybe I think we planned for like a 10 or 15-minute conversation, and we're looking at about 30 minutes now. So it might be even worth doing a part 2 of these, or 3 and 4 if you're interested sometime down the road.
Yeah,